When two people are fighting, most of us, when somebody comes and fights with us, we're just taught, or we're in the habit of fighting back, arguing back. You said this, you, and then name calling and swearing and all of that. This is a hub. This is a breeding ground for psychic entities, for dark entities. This lower vibrational frequency becomes a portal, a gateway into the dark realms.
Just how flies feed off rotten food, entities feed off our rotten emotions. Currently, the situation is that for billions of years, our current universe, this is a free will universe. However, it is a universe where there's dark elements and there's light elements. And the dark elements are the ones who go against source, and they cut themselves off from source, which means they want to control others. They want to break the laws of free will and feed off other people's energy rather than just live in harmony and peace with the whole universe and abide by the laws. And when we abide by the laws, there's no problem. There's enough abundance in this universe for everyone, which is how most good-hearted people live. However, these entities, because of war and corruption and years of genetic degradation, they forgot their true connection into source, and they went into such a deep level of soul fear that they pretty much broke their food supply from source. Like source is prime creator, source is God, source is the creator of all that is, and source provides equally for every living being, every sentient being in this universe. So source does not, source is unconditional love. Source does not discriminate even when some entities go against the laws. Source still wants to provide, but once you make the decision that you want to break the laws, your decision breaks you from being able to feed off that unlimited supply of energy. So the only way they can now exist or survive is by extracting energy from other beings. So this is how entities came to be, because there's higher level, higher dimensional beings that cut themselves off from source, and now they had to strategize or come up with a plan that allows them to feed off lower dimensional beings of people like us, humanity, and other races that are still in this universe. And because we have our connection to source, they are able to extract that source energy from us and feed it from us. But in order to do that, they have to like play a trick on us and kind of like trick us to give away our own free will so that we can feed them.
Yes, and we can even give you a direct example which is so tangible in your households. So think about a time when you are in an argument with your partner. You're in an argument, you're really bickering, you're shouting at each other, you're really going at it. What happens is most human beings, they go around these fights and this drama and gossip and anger and resentment and narcissistic behavior without even knowing the impact that it's having on their lives. So let's say two people are fighting. What we teach in psychic protection is that when somebody comes at you with anger, with a low vibrational frequency as anger, that is not a match to a high vibrational frequency such as love, for example, unconditional love, this lower vibrational frequency becomes a portal, a gateway into the dark realms. Negative entities, so dark entities are synthetic beings. They're not like you and me. They are synthetic beings that these dark lords created to feed off, to basically harvest energy, dark energy, which we call loosh energy, L-O-O-S-H energy. When people fight, when there's war, when there's struggle, when there's child sacrifice, when they're, ritual harvesting, all of these negative satanic forces that we've been experiencing and seeing on earth, when all of this goes on, the greater the suffering, the more the loosh energy that is generated for these dark lords. So just like you and I can breathe in prana, we can breathe in oxygen, we can breathe in light, because we are connected to Prime Creator, these dark entities do not have that privilege because they have chosen to cut themselves off from God, from Source. So now what they do is they are always looking in our third dimensional reality in Earth. So these beings, these entities are actually in 4D. They're 4D astral beings. They're never going to make it to 5D because they're not a vibrational match to the fifth dimension. So what these entities do is they're always looking, saying, where can I latch on to someone that is in anger, that is in insecurity, that is in envy and jealousy, that is in, what are some of the other things, that is in extreme blame, like he did this, she did this, like
revenge energy, fighting, combat, anger, all of these, resentment, any negative emotion. Even if you feel guilt and fear in your heart, entities can easily latch onto that. So it's important to understand right now that these entities are basically hunting, or they're always, you know how the fly example is so apt in this? Flies are always looking for food, right? So you can think of Earth as being surrounded by these fourth dimensional invisible beings. These are astral beings, but they're always hovering around and they're scanning the whole field to see where there's war. If there's a country with war, that's like a buffet for them. They'll like latch onto all the pain and misery there and suck the energy out of people who are suffering. But even if in a normal household, if you live in a peaceful country like Canada or the United States, there's so much argument, there's so much tension, there's so much family drama and all of that. Even that becomes a breeding ground for these entities, because what they really do is they can instigate arguments. So when you know that you're being pushed, your buttons are being triggered by extra dimensional forces that want to feed off your negative energy, they're also able to manipulate you. They're also able to enter your nervous system and reside there. They're actually able to, when you're in an angry state, your energy field is shrunk. We're constantly doing light work, so our auric field is expanded and it's creating a barrier. It's creating like a shield around us, and there's so much light around us that entities are repelled by light. But let's say if I was constantly angry all the time, what would happen is my auric field would shrink
and also have tears in it
and have holes in it and gaps in it, and that's what creates these entry points for these entities. So once we become aware of that, we have to realize that once we are in a state of negativity, anger, blame, resentment, judgment, all of these things, your energy is becoming like a crushed little crumpled paper, and it's like kind of like hair. It's like a little bit there, but it's not all over in a uniform protective field around you like it's supposed to be. So that basically the other parts of your body literally are open spaces. They're like feeding grounds.
Your organs, your tissue,
so they can
everything.
be taken over. Your tissues can be taken over. Like, we're specialists in entity removal, and we've been doing this for years. And what we see in many clients is that there's entities in their arms, there are entities in the back of their head. Any place where the light is not existing, the entities can take over that part of your body. And what they do is they take over your nervous system in a way that they can control your responses. So you know how negative people get triggered very easily? It's because these entities are literally like in their control station, and anytime there's an argument, they can say, okay, now you're going to respond like this.
Yes.
And you think it gives you a kind of a pleasure.
It's like a whisper in your ear, but
Yeah.
it's not the whisper of your angel, it's the whisper of the entity, because now they're in you.
Yeah.
Because you've become a vibrational match to them. So they're waiting, and just at the right time, they're like, go. How dare she? Say something back. So they'll instigate
Exactly.
you. But it's very important to know that entities are only a match to you if you are a vibrational match to them.
You know how we say your vibe attracts your tribe? So your vibe also attracts entities. So if you're constantly keeping yourself in a low vibration, then you become a target. And this is not to go into guilt or blame or shame about yourself. Just realize this like a scientist. So take your notebook and say, oh, I get it. Now I'm onto this. Now I know what I need to do. So what do you need to do? You need to always keep your vibration high. And that's what we teach in all of our videos.
Now there's another thing. Siman said don't feel bad about it. And I want to touch on this for a second. Most people feel like ashamed, like, oh my God, I have entities. Trust me, every single one of you watching at some level probably has entities. And it's not something to be afraid of. So 10 years ago or 9 years ago, 8 years ago when I had my awakening, I don't even remember when it was, about 7 years ago, I would say. I was still very early into my awakening. And when I first heard entity, I'm like, what? I have an entity? And trust me, guys, the journey never ends. Meaning until you ascend and become a full-fledged ascended master, At some level, you are a vibrational match to an entity for some reason. Initially, for those of you who are on your initial spiritual and awakening path, you may have several entities because you've been living your life very unconsciously. You've been living your life not knowing that it's not good to live in self-doubt and self-judgment or feed off drama or gossip or vengeance and hate and anger and envy and all of that. But if you look at the emotional scale, you can even Google it, just look for the emotional scale. Like you'll see love, peace, harmony. They're all high vibrational emotions of the angelic realm. But then the other extreme is lust and hate and jealousy and all of that. So it's very obvious, are you vibrating here or are you vibrating here? Now there's one other thing I want to also mention. These entities are actually doing us a huge favor.
It's a very good point.
Huge favor. You know why? Do you know why Prime Creator allowed this mega experiment to continue until now? Because once the great solar flash happens, which is a 15th, it comes from the 15th dimension. We talk about all this in our Metatronic video. The solar flash is a pulse that is sent from the 15th dimension that comes into the entire, like it basically comes in and it destroys, it completely nukes everything that is negatively polarized. So why is this experiment being allowed until the solar flash? Because it is only because of these dark entities, and it's only because of this polarity that you are even able to see your blind spots. You're able to see, oh my God, I'm still in insecurity, I'm still in greed, I'm still in anger. Because if there was none of that, if it was all positively polarized, your soul would have no evolution. So have a sense of reverence, never name call dark entities or never go into resentment or hate or blame even for them. I know I'm saying something very profound, like very hard for many of you to swallow, but have a sense of reverence for the fact that even the dark entities are here to teach you and help you ascend.
Exactly. These entities are our biggest teachers, and like Eldora mentioned, never go into anger or attack mode because you can't fight fire with fire.
Yes.
You have to, the only way you can get out of entity attack or be invisible to entities is by being loving awareness. And this is a download that our guides gave us recently, and we practice this all the time. So you can just close your eyes and feel into these words. Just take a deep breath and connect with your heart. And say the affirmation, I am loving awareness.
I am loving awareness.
I am loving awareness.
I am loving awareness.
So you see the vibration of this? When you are constantly repeating this mantra, but not just repeating it like you're saying it in your head, repeating it as if you are embodying it in every moment. So as a shaman, as an entity removal expert, one of the basic premises that we follow is to treat every single being with respect. Because if we match their, if I see an entity in someone, in one of my clients, and I say, well, you're not supposed to be here, and I'm gonna like do you justice, and you're gonna go to hell, and those kind of vibes, then I'm lowering my vibration.
And then you lose your protection.
Important. Exactly. Then you become an open target for entities. But the way we do it is we say, we'll go more into the entity removal process later, but we just become loving awareness and we hold space for them. And when I've seen tons of entities, I saw one yesterday. I've seen tons of entities in my lifetime. And when I see an entity, I actually look at its soul and I just see a scared little child. These are just scared little beings that are acting like monsters. They're little babies who are so afraid because they cannot even comprehend being the light. When they see a light priest or someone very powerful, they shudder. So you, instead of throwing anger at them, have compassion for them and realize that you are more powerful. It's just like this little 2-year-old acting like a 12-foot monster, but it's just a little being who's so afraid. When you see the entity for what he or she or it is, you'll realize it's just a frail little creature looking for love. And what we do is we say, we address the entity, you ask its name, you give it respect, and you say, you know what, I'm gonna give you a chance to go back to the source light. Would you like that? I promise you no harm will come to you.
And I promise you that Archangel Michael will himself, like the collective of Archangel Michael, will come down, descend here, and themselves take you back. And usually the dark entities don't believe us. They're like, they don't believe us. They're like, no.
They believe you if you're sincere, though.
But they don't initially believe you. Initially, what I've seen in every time we've given, it's not the first time that they say, oh gosh, yeah, sure, let's go home. But it's more like, that's too good to be true. But you have to then assure them. You have to say, look, we've created a portal for you. We've created a window back home for you. Archangel Michael is going to take you home.
Yeah.
And then, this is the important part. Even dark entities are given the option to go back to the light.
Yeah.
It's always their own option.
Yeah, and also we don't have to be completely compliant with them either.
Right.
We give them 2 or 3 very loving suggestions, but at the end of the day, once you spot an entity, the universal law is that they have to be removed.
They have to
They
leave.
don't have a choice. So once you give them a few compassionate options and they're still being stubborn, then you simply say, Archangel Michael, I've done all I can. Please accompany this entity to the light. And you can call upon High Priest Melchizedek. But this is not just a verbal command. It's not that simple. There's a few techniques that we are going to teach you towards the end that actually remove the entities from your chakras. The biggest tip I can give you is educate yourself. Ignorance is not bliss in this circumstance. Once we walk the spiritual path, once we become aware of the light and the dark, we literally are opening up a can of worms. And it's like, you would go to a foreign country, you would like get the lay of the land, right? The same goes for the spiritual path.
Exactly.
When you're walking the spiritual path, you gotta know that there's pitfalls,
Yes.
there's things you need to know.
And you need to become a warrior.
You need to educate yourself.
Yes.
And we're teaching this stuff. So if you're able to invest in your own spiritual education,
Yes.
it's gonna drastically change your whole life trajectory. It's going to bring so much abundance. It's going to bring so much
joy.
power. It's going to bring you so much self-confidence that you can actually deal with these things, that I cannot emphasize that enough. And we're also going to do an in-depth workshop in our New Earth Mystery School, because this is becoming such a hot topic and there's so much entity attack right now that we want to not just make a YouTube video that's like scratching the surface, but actually give you concrete tips, techniques, and advice on how to remove entities from your chakras, how to cleanse your aura,
From your spine.
how to shield yourself, what to do in a situation when you're constantly in an argument kind of situation or being faced with negative people around you, how you protect yourself from their negativity.
How you protect your aura, how you protect your light body.
and even protect your home.
Check out the Mystery School, and most importantly, become a member, because every 2 weeks you're going to be hit with like something amazing. So we love you guys. See you soon.